Welcome to The Business Behind Your Business, the podcast where we delve into the financial strategies and insights that drive success for small and medium-sized business owners. I'm your host, Paul Sweeney, and in each episode we bring you expert guests who share practical advice, real-world experiences, and actionable tips to empower you on your business journey. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, get ready to uncover the secrets to success and gain valuable insights into the business behind your business. So welcome back to The Business Behind Your Business, where we're helping you as a business owner create a growing, thriving, prosperous business that gives you the lifestyle that you want and need to enjoy, because that's what business is about. And look, today's guest is one I'm excited to talk to, because we're really going to unpack that journey about how you can move the business from, I guess, something that you're really in that day-to-day grind to that business where you are actually, I guess, and to steal a phrase from our guest, the architect of your business, designing that business that works without you. So Bradley Hamner is from Blueprint OS, and Bradley is a business growth coach, certified value builder, creator of the Rainmaker to Architect assessment, and host of the Above Business podcast. And look, Bradley works with a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, just like you, just like our listeners, and helping them to install systems, processes, routines in their businesses to grow and scale. And the ultimate outcome is you've got a successful business that creates freedom and flexibility that you desire when you first go into business. And look, what else can we ask for? That's exactly what we're here for. So Bradley, welcome to the microphone.
Paul, it's an absolute pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you today, and hope I can show up to your listening audience and provide a tremendous amount of value.
Yeah, look, I'm certain that you will, because what I'm looking at, the topic we're going to discuss, and your insights that I've already had a look at, certainly on target for what our audience is about: growing businesses, unlocking that freedom, having the flexibility without the high levels of stress. I want to start, Bradley. Why is this such a passion for you? Why are you so connected to this idea of being the architect of your own business? Do you mind sharing why that's such a passion for you?
Well, it's a passion of mine, and it really feels like that it's my purpose in life of what I want to be able to do is just be able to serve entrepreneurs, founders for the rest of my life. And specifically because it was my own journey. Honestly, I started in business. My first business I started in late 2009, early 2010. My dad is a small business owner, specifically a farmer. And I guess, my dad did not push me to small business or entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, I found myself there. And so really, I picked up a lot from my dad. Specifically, they say things, a lot of the best things are caught, not taught. And that thing from my dad that I picked up is the value of hard work. I mean, when you're a farmer, farming 10,000 acres, that's a lot to plant in the spring and a lot to harvest in the fall. And I saw the hard work that my dad put in, and it was just instilled in me. That's what you do. And then after college, I, took some sales jobs. And so really, the only two skills that I have, if you consider skill a hard work or hard work a skill, is I knew how to sell and I knew how to work my tail off. And that's exactly what was needed in that business to give it lift. It was great. It worked, but ultimately it stopped working in 2015. And I found myself at a place where it's like, you know what? I think I'm going to leave. I think I'm going to quit, throw in the white, wave the white flag, so to speak, and leave business. But unfortunately, I didn't do that. So we can certainly dive into kind of some of those things, but it worked until it didn't. And so now what we do with small business owners is we help them on the same journey that I was on in my career.
Yeah, that's great. So now, you mentioned it worked until it stopped working. And I'm finding that a lot of business owners today are facing that same situation, that the things that they were doing before worked up to a point, and now circumstances have changed, the global conditions have changed, the economy has changed, just the way people do business has changed. But also, and look, I feel this myself. As I get older, my capacity to spend the time doing the hours and the energy required is diminished. So it's not working the same as it was 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah. You're so right. Well, for me, I ran out of time. So here's the thing. The reason it stopped working is because what I was doing was working. Here's what I mean. The business was growing. And so when I first started, I started with no customers, no leads, a little bit of money in the bank. And the business, like I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. And so we know in Huntsville that small things rotate around big things. And so think about like you as the business owner, when you're getting effectively a business off the ground, you're the big thing and the business is rotating around you. Well, the thing is I was putting my sales skills and hard work to it, and it worked. The business started to grow, but then ultimately the business got bigger than what I was able to handle. In other words, there's too many emails to handle. Look, I had a team. It wasn't like I was a solopreneur. I had a team, but I couldn't answer all the emails. I couldn't respond to all the messages. I couldn't do all of those things. And so the business got big enough to where it started to sling me around. And so what did I know to do? Work harder. Well, then that started to be not 5 days a week, not even 6 days a week. It was every single day, all day, consumed me constantly, even if I wasn't, quote, in the office. And so in late 2015, it was around this time, as a matter of fact, July, August 2015, that I started to have some pains in my chest. I went to work out, and at the end of the day, I was suffering from, or experiencing, I should say, panic attacks. I didn't know it at the time because I'd never felt that before. And so I went to a physician friend of mine, and he put me in an EKG machine, and he said, Bradley, you know what? We see some stuff on here. We need to take you in to see a cardiologist. And I did. I did a stress test. I'd never done that before. And that whole 24 hours was incredibly stressful. Like what is happening to me? And the cardiologist said, look, everything is fine with your heart. I don't know what you got going on in your life, but you might want to change it. But Paul, it wasn't obvious what the change needed to be. I'm not going to tell somebody on the podcast that, I left there and I just had this epiphany from the heavens, walk down of like, this is what you need to do. You need to become the architect of your business. Like, no, it wasn't that way at all. I was kind of swimming. But at that point, I thought to myself, it's not worth it. I can go back into the corporate world, get a couple $100,000 salary, 401k, company car, do all that stuff, and just be fine. Like not have to deal with all this crap. I'll make more money. I'll provide for my family. That's what I'm going to do. And ultimately, I didn't do that, but I looked at it very strongly, I have to tell you. And so fortunately, I found myself in Toronto. I was at Strategic Coach, as a matter of fact, and I was sitting next to an entrepreneur. We were doing the 10X is easier than 2X exercise, which is now popularized into the book that came out last year. And this guy says, look, we did 40 million top line, and I made 5 million personally. And this is what 400 million and 50 would look like. And I was like, my jaw was on the floor. Like, wait, you did what? How much? And he said, you go. And I was like, I'm not about to go. Are you kidding me? My numbers are embarrassing low compared to what yours are. And he said something to me that I heard for years. And when I say it, I bet a lot of your listeners are probably going to roll their eyes, much like I did that day, is they say, look, it's systems and processes. And I thought, are you kidding me? I'm so sick and tired of hearing that. And I think I said something to him around that respect. And he said, look, I'll show you. And he showed me their systems. He showed me what their processes were. And ultimately, that on the way back is when I started to see things differently. That changed everything. Now, again, he didn't give me what those were. He didn't give me the templates, but I finally saw what it actually meant to do that. But before I went and started putting things into a Word document, as an example, I started to see things differently. And so the change happened inside me first, and then the change started to happen inside the business. And so that's a little bit about my journey.
Oh, yeah. Wow. That's I guess that's something that a lot of business owners can identify with. Hopefully, not pushing themselves to the health extremes, but we do see a lot of that. We also see a lot of marital stress happening, and unfortunately, that's a consequence of business issues that we're seeing. But systems and processes is something we're really keen on. But I want to, you mentioned, just as you were closing there, you mentioned that you made the change personally before you changed the systems and processes.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of businesses implement or grab a system, plunk it on their desk and think that's going to solve the problem. But I think the core difference here is that you said you made the change personally. So Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah, I think it's a really good pickup, because we actually call it the two journeys. And there's two parallel journeys that are happening. There's the journey that you're on as the owner, as the entrepreneur, of becoming the architect, and then there's the journey that the business is on. And so really the one journey is around transformation, and one journey is around achievement of the business. And so the business needs an operating system. It does. It needs an operating system. It's quietly the team and the business itself is saying we need to run off something other than you. We can't run off of you anymore. I mean, we ran off of you fine, but if we're going to actually scale, okay, and that's a difference between growth, but if we're going to scale, we can't scale you. We cannot, like, you're a person, not a system. And so, but to your point, you have to see yourself differently. You have to see yourself differently. You have to make an identity shift. That's the thing, is I had an identity shift. I shifted from seeing myself as the Rainmaker. Everything is dependent upon me. All the sales is dependent upon me. The service is dependent upon me. I saw myself differently. Instead of thinking, you know what, I'll do it. I'll just take care of it. I know how to handle this. I started to think, well, how do I build it? How would I go and design something to where this isn't dependent upon me anymore? And that's the thing. So for me, I heard systems and processes for years, right? I've read E-Myth. I read the book. It's actually why our podcast is called Above the Business, is a nod to that book, which is, work on it, not in it. We agree. I just think there's a third dimension, which is above the business. And so, like, I love that book, but I never did anything with it. To your point, it wasn't, the system, I needed the system, but I needed to see myself differently. And so, like, I started to think, instead of this thing just happening, kind of by default, why don't I just design it? Why don't I design the thing to get it to what I want it to do? And so you start to see tasks in the business differently. You start to view them differently. You start to think, like, wait a minute, if I was the architect, how would I actually architect this? Like, our community actually uses that language. They think, okay, wait a minute, how do I go about architecting this? And so you start, because of that, it's an identity shift in and of themselves. And I think that is such a key point, because if you see yourself differently, then the system that you go and build is going to be able to work, and it's going to be able to work long term. And so that's the transition, I think, as much as anything. And we'll get into some of the businessy stuff, but I think it has to be paired with an identity shift of the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. So you had a very strong catalyst, a reason to change.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of business owners, that kind of event does come. But for many, perhaps, who are listening to this and maybe at an early stage of their entrepreneurial journey, thinking that I can do it all myself, it's. I guess that's where you were when you were starting your business. That you thought you could do all of it yourself.
Oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, I was like, I'm Superman or Superwoman, right? I mean, I'm Superman. I can do it. I mean, yeah, for sure. It was like, I'm built different, And I think that was a subconscious thing. But at the end of the day, like, kids come and other things come. And, I mean, we can get into, my identity was too wrapped up in my performance around business. If business was doing great, I felt highly of myself. If it wasn't, then I felt low of myself. And, like, if you've been in business a minute, business is hard. Business is hard. Like, I love Donald Miller. A friend of mine works for his company way up. I love his book, Business Made Simple. Business is not simple. Okay. Business is really hard. Business is really hard. I mean, and I think thinking that it's easy is what makes it harder, honestly. And so, a friend of mine, their company is doing about 8 million. And I was on a call with him on Monday, and he shared, like, goodness gracious, like, I never thought we would be dealing with some of the challenges we're dealing with at the company at this stage. And so, like, if you think you want to scale, I'm telling you that business will get harder. The challenges you will face will get harder than they are at 300,000, but also the rewards are too. That's what we sign up for, right? We sign up for the freedom and flexibility and some of these things. And I think understanding that, hey, this is hard what we're doing. As a matter of fact, I don't know in Australia, but at least in the US, 96% of small businesses do not see their 10th birthday. I mean, that's just stats. And 91% don't cross $1 million in top line revenue. Like, it's why our retreats are called Beat the Odds. They're called Beat the Odds for that reason. It's like, man, these odds are not in our favor, yet we sign up for it because we're after freedom and flexibility. I mean, that's what I really wanted in my business. And so I was so desperate to just work myself to death to be able to find it. So it's interesting that we will trade the 9 to 5 for the 5 to 9.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And look, just on those stats, Bradley, the statistics in Australia are very, very similar. And in fact, I think 95% of businesses have a turnover of less than 2 million. I think that's the bracket that's used in Australia. But very much that idea that, I talk to a lot of business owners and they've lost sight of that reason why they started the business, because often freedom, flexibility, creating a lifestyle, creating wealth goes out I won't say goes out the window, but gets pushed aside by the urgency of the day to day. Now, and how do you make that transformation? Now, I'm touched on that. You don't just plunk a set of systems and processes on your desk and instantly the problem is solved. There is a methodology. There is a progression there, I think. And we were talking earlier, and you mentioned a number of specific steps to move from that position of being the Rainmaker, where you're doing everything, to the architect of your business, designing a business, I guess, on purpose, designing on purpose.
Yeah, it is being designed. It's designed, not defaulted. So, I mean, it's there's an intentionality behind what it is that you really want. And so, yeah, we have 5 milestones of what it means to become the architect of your business. Matter of fact, in our community, we call it the Rainmaker to Architect Journey Award. There's literally a award. So when people join our community, we give them the base of the award. Okay. And as they click these milestones off, which I'll obviously get into, and as I go, once I go through them, feel free to ask me any of the questions that you may have about some of the milestones. But for me, I didn't have any of this language, but these are the 5 milestones I wanted initially in my business too. Okay. And so instead of it being just an idea or a concept, how do I know that I've arrived at becoming the architect of my business? And so number 1, we've already touched on it briefly, is you've got a business doing $1 million or more in annual revenue. I know you'll use turnover, but you're doing $1 million or more. Now, for some of your listeners, they've already crossed that milestone. They're there. Well, we just talked about the statistics. I mean, you're beating the odds if you've crossed, $84,000 a month run rate in your business. And that is something to absolutely be able to celebrate. Because for me, having a business that was going to do $1 million was like, oh my goodness, well, it's life-changing to be able to get there. And for a lot of, people in our community, that's where they want to get to as well. But it's not enough for the thing to just do over $1 million in revenue. We want it also to be growing and profitable. We want it year over year growth. We still want the thing to combined year over year growth plus profitability. We call that number Rule of 40. We actually picked that up from the SaaS world, where it talks about maintaining the combined growth year over year, plus your profitability number needs to be 40 or more. So if you're doing 20% profit and you're growing year over year 20%, you're doing it, right? Or maybe 15 and 25 as an example. So number 1, it's doing over $1 million. Number 2, it's growing and profitable, as evidenced by the Rule of 40. But the thing is if you're burning it morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week, every single week, and you are achieving the first 2, I mean, great, but what's it worth to you, right? I mean, it goes back to our whole freedom and flexibility. So we specifically want to help our business owners to take enough time off. And so we actually say 12 weeks off. We say 12 weeks off because for me, I don't want to work less. I don't want to take, 26 weeks off. I don't want to do it. I love work. I absolutely love work. And I want to build the year off 40 weeks. Now, somebody listening to this is saying, oh my gosh, first of all, I have no idea how much time I took off last year. Number two, 40 weeks, that seems like a lot. But believe it or not, when you actually get it structured for you in a way, it's more doable and easier than you think to be able to take that much time off, to be able to refresh yourself, rejuvenate. Okay, doing over $1 million, growing and profitable, we got enough time off. But number 4, if you're stuck doing $10 an hour task in the business, it's probably not what you signed up for. So we specifically say you have an EA to help you buy back your time. Love Dan Martell's book, Buy Back Your Time, but it's not for a business owner. It is not a luxury to have an executive assistant. It is honestly a necessity. You have to have one. Otherwise, you're doing all of the things in the business. That's how strongly we believe in it. And then lastly, you've actually installed an operating system for the business to run outside of you. So we specifically have a set of playbooks that our members get access to, and that's what we spend our time going over in our community, is giving them access to those playbooks and going deep into them so that the business is actually run on an operating system. So those 5, again, it's doing over $1 million in revenue, it's growing and profitable, you're taking adequate time off, you have an EA to help buy back your time, and you've actually installed an operating system that allows it to run independently of you.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's just so much in those 5 steps, and I think look, there's a couple of ones I want to pull out and just have a brief, a bit more dive into. I guess the first one you mentioned, that planning to have 12 weeks off. One of the first questions I ask business owners when I start working with them is, when was the last time you had a holiday?
Yeah.
And most of them can't remember. But if you look at why most people start a business, it's because they want to have that time off, particularly if they've got young families. I know for me, when my kids were younger, it was a priority to be able to leave work early and go and coach their sports teams, or go to their school events, or just have time with them. But for a lot of business owners, they're missing so much of that. And you need that time away from your business to recharge physically as well. So
absolutely.
So I think, do you encourage people to schedule that time off in advance?
Yeah, we do. One of the biggest things around time off, and I'll give you a couple of things for your listening audience to actually just take away with this. So number 1, if you do the math on it, it's 84 days. So take 12 weeks times 7 is 84 days. So one of the ways that we get there is we encourage you to take 1 day per week. And for most of our business owners, it's Saturday. It's most of the time it's Saturday that they take off, that they say every week, we call it no work Saturdays. Okay. So I'm not, my kids know, my kids are the best ones to hold me accountable. Okay. Daddy, no, it's no work Saturday, right? I mean, we have college football here in the States starting this weekend. So we're super excited about that, but no work, no business podcast. I'm not listening to podcasts. I'm certainly not reading business books. I'm not doing any of that stuff. Okay. And I think that's valuable. So right there, you get 52 Saturdays out of the 84 if you can do that, or Sundays if that's the better day for you. And then you have, like in the US, I'm sure in Australia and even around the world, like you have these built-in holidays. You have built-in, whether it's 4th of July, Christmas, whatever those days are. And once you start to compile some of those, Labor Day is coming up in the United States actually next week at the time of this recording. So some of those you get built up to, and then you start looking at, if you do have kids in school age, like their spring break or their fall break, or you're always going to take a week off during the summer, it's amazing how quick you can actually build up to, like, okay, that's actually enough time. But the biggest thing I want to share with people is you have to track it. you actually have to track it. And the thing about a business owner, nobody's asking them to track it. It's not like our employees, they have to turn in time off and you actually see how much time off they had in 2023 or 2024. You don't have to ask about it. So nobody is pushing on you. We call it a forcing function. There's no forcing function for Paul to check in on how much time did I actually take off? So when, to your point, that's why you're so great at what you do, is because the value of asking that question makes a business owner go, I have no idea. I have no idea how much time I take off. And so really we say it's 12 weeks off, but I'll be honest with you, it's actually not about the 12 weeks. It's really not. If a business owner says, I went from I don't know to 6 weeks in 2024, that's a massive leap. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, certainly. And that accountability is a key thing. And so that leads into the second thing that I want to talk about there is the community. You mentioned community a number of times when we were going through the 5 milestones. Mm-hmm. And one of the key things we see is a lot of business owners are doing this by themselves. Okay, mm-hmm. A small business, very few employees, maybe no accountability, maybe no network. But that community is so essential. And can you share some examples of how that community has really helped some of the people participating in your programs to actually achieve that growth?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I'm a product of community, period. I mean, myself, I put myself in other places. I mean, they may be called masterminds. They may be called another coaching program or something like that. I do believe in it. Don't trust a coach who doesn't have a coach. I personally believe that, right? No matter what level that they're at. I think that, look, you can read a book, you can listen to this podcast, and these are valuable. And I've listened to podcasts and I've read books and I've watched YouTube videos that have been incredibly helpful to me. They really have, right? But especially even with where things are going even more with AI, there's one thing that AI cannot AI, and that's community. That's with other people hearing, you know what, I'm struggling with this part of it. I'll tell you, one of our community members, we got off of a call and he was struggling just this week, with. I play the Voxer message, but I don't want to do that to keep him his anonymity. But he has a daughter that's had some health issues, and she just got diagnosed with celiac. And so when we were having this discussion, there was a change he needed to make. He needed to shift a team member, and he still does. He needs to shift a team member. They're in sales. They're not working out in sales. He needs to move them over to customer service, or to a service role, customer care, that sort of thing. And I was having this discussion with him, and I could just tell Paul, something was it wasn't rating. It wasn't landing. And I thought to myself, something's up with him. And I can't really put my finger on it. Later that day, he said, hey, I just wanted to share with you kind of what we got going on. And I was so honored for him to share that story about what he's going through with his daughter. And to your point, whether it's marriages or whether it's financial pressure. My mom just passed away 2 months ago. And I actually did a podcast on this called Owner Island. And to your point, we can so often feel like that we're on this island alone. But when we open up and share with other people that we trust, okay, I believe not everybody in business and in your life, not everybody gets the honor of hearing your story. I don't think that you have to blast it on a podcast per se, but I think when you are able to sit and listen to their journey and their story, man, there's nothing more deeply moving, I think, for us as people, as men, as women, to be able to be around other people. And I think specifically it can feel really lonely as an entrepreneur at times. And so the challenge is, are you willing to take that step on your WhatsApp group, in your circle community, whatever platform you use, a text message to a friend and say, hey man, I need to talk. I'm kind of struggling. I'm having a tough day. I'm frustrated. And at the same time, let me go to the other end of that real quick and just say, what other places are you willing to be able to jump on a call and say, we just landed a $125,000 deal? I just had that in one of the groups I was in yesterday. They were pumped, and everybody in the group was like, let's go. They're fired up for their business. You share that with non-business owners, they start going, wait, $125,000? Well, man, you're buying the drinks tonight or whatever. They get jealous about that. And so, you have to be able to share openly, not only the struggles, but also where do you share the wins?
Yeah. So, community has, I guess, multiple purposes there, multiple benefits, and not just sharing the struggles which you've mentioned, but I just want to touch back on. So you've got the milestones and the awards, and you've just talked about celebrating those successes. How important is it to celebrate and remember that you've actually achieved?
Yeah. So that's a good question, Paul. So go back to the stats you and I were throwing out just a few minutes ago, that 91% don't cross a million, 96% don't see their 10th birthday. Business is really hard. And so we actually have a framework that we talk about called MIT, the most important thing. So we say, what is the most important thing you can do for you? What's the most important thing you can do for your team? And what's the most important thing you can do for the business? And what I want to share, the most important thing I think you can do for you is to protect your confidence, because business will beat it down. Just will. So specifically, what is the routine you can put in place to be able to do that? Number one, we advocate Sunday night planning. The very first thing you do in Sunday night planning, what were the wins I had from the previous week? We start all of our blueprint sessions in our program. We put 3 minutes on the clock. What are the wins you had from the past week? Every quarter, when we run our members' quarterlies, what were the wins you had from the past quarter? When we do the annual coming up in December, what were the wins from this past year? I think if we don't put in that structure and routine in place, we'll only think about the problems and the struggles and the frustrations that we have, because that's just how we're wired.
Yeah. And I've seen so many business owners, they do achieve their goal, and then they focus on the next goal straight away and don't give themselves time to actually step back and say, hey, we actually did well. We did really well here. We achieved this. Things are moving forward the way that we want.
Yeah. So to be open in community here with you and your listening audience. So fast forward from my journey. So 2015, late 2015, we start making changes. 2017, 2016 was better than 15. And then 2017, things really took off like a rocket. We have the best year we've ever had. It's January of 18. Okay. So now we're 2 years into this kind of transformation, so to speak. We achieved this huge goal. Team says, that one that we've been trying to achieve for a long time. Team says, oh my goodness, we did it. How are we going to celebrate? And I said, and I honestly cringe at this, looking back on it, is I said, that's not what we do. We don't celebrate. We just do it again. And they were like, can we not have lunch? It was a big goal. It was a big thing that we had tried to qualify for a really long time, try to hit. And we did. And I said, nah, we just move on. That's what we do, is go back to work. And that sucks. Don't do that. I wish we'd have celebrated. I wish we would have gone to a really nice restaurant. I wish we would have solidified that, taken pictures of it, because I would have loved to have been able. I wish I could have showed you the pictures of that. Now, I don't have those pictures of those moments. And so I totally agree that you have to be able to celebrate the wins, because they're hard to come by.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Well, it seems to me that you've got a very good structured process in there. You're sharing it with your community, and you've built up quite a strong community. Blueprint OS is your business, but look, if somebody wants to find out more about how they can become part of this community that you've established and benefit from your, mentorship, coaching structure, your experience, what's the best way?
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So what we did is we've got a great starter kit. So we call it the Rainmaker to Architect starter kit. So in that starter kit, it's a mini course with training videos and also tangible downloads that they can access. And so if they go to our website, it's blueprintos.com/assets. And they'll see the Rainmaker to Architect starter kit there on the website. So they'll go in, opt in, they'll be able to see the mini course. And also in there, because of my podcast, I will do some episodes where I'll talk around an asset and like weekly one-to-ones as an example. So down below also in that course is some free downloads that we have talked about on the podcast that they'll get access to as well. And again, the majority of those come with not only the asset, but a little bit of a training video from me about how to be able to use it and install it in the business. So yeah, blueprintos.com/assets, and they can get access to the starter kit.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, the Above the Business podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, listen into Above the Business podcast and hear more from Bradley. And it'll be well worth your time. And you'll certainly get a lot of value out of it like we have today. And Bradley, thank you very much for your sharing your journey and also how you're helping business owners create that flexibility, that freedom, and that lifestyle that they've chosen.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much. You're a pro at doing this. It was an honor to be with you today and get to meet you. And hopefully I was able to serve your community. So thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. You certainly have achieved that. And look, if any of the links and the references that Bradley's mentioned during the podcast today, they'll be in the show notes. So make sure you check those out and make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss out on future episodes like we've had today. So thanks again, Bradley. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Business Behind Your Business. We hope you found today's discussion insightful and valuable for your business journey. Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with fellow business owners who could benefit and send in your burning questions because we love hearing from you. Missed any of our previous episodes or looking for additional resources to help grow your business? Head over to our website at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. There you'll find our full archive of past episodes along with show notes, transcripts, and links to valuable resources mentioned in each episode. Your journey to business success continues at thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and keep building the business of your dreams.